Did you know that 90% of Jews say that they attend some sort of Seder? Isn't that an amazing number? What is it about the Seder? In this video, I want to talk to those of you who are making your Seder, maybe for the first time, maybe for the second or third time, and you want to have a type of Seder that's a little bit more traditional than the type that you grew up with. You want to add something more to it. Well, I'll just give you a little bit of background about me. I grew up Orthodox, religious, and our Seders were long and late into the night. We had, 20, 25 people at our house. My brother-in-law came from Iran when he was 15, and he came so that he wouldn't have to be conscripted into the army. So he came to school here. After he married my sister-in-law, his nephews and cousins were in danger of being drafted into the army, and so they escaped. And they have an incredible story how they escaped in the trunk of a car, their own leaving Egypt. In the trunk of a car, they had to pass through the border patrol, and then they traveled on camel back to Pakistan and then to Vienna. One of the boys became my brother. His name is Nissen. And on Pesach time, there were 5 of them, Nissen and his cousin and his cousin and his uncle, they would all join us, and they would like chat away in Persian and, make me think they were talking about me. So that was our Seder and a few other really special guests. But it was really quite traditional, and a lot of what I'm going to tell you here is from my Seder back home. So the first thing to remember is that Seder is a reenactment. That is what is going on Seder night. We're getting into the mode reenacting our slavery as well as our freedom. That's why we have the matzah and the maror. The matzah represents our freedom. We were going out in haste before the dough had any time to rise. It was just time to go. And the maror, the bitter tears, where we came from, who we once were. We sit at our table and we're literally like kings. We dress in our finest clothing and put our finest dishes on the table. And there's a custom, I don't know if everyone does this the way that I grew up, is nobody pours their own wine. Everyone pours, for the person next to them or for another person, or you can ask one person to be the wine pourer, that you sit like a king and you lean to your left, right? And that's a mitzvah to lean to your left while you're drinking the wine. Back to your Seder. How are you going to get this across? You have this little Haggadah, and the Haggadah has many verses in it, and the Manish Tana in it. How are you going to get across this message with all this text to read? I'll tell you, first thing, it is a challenge. It is actually a challenge to get across all these stories and messages and get through the text. So what we did is like this, and this is what we do in our family as well. We take our time at the beginning. We take our time with Kiddush. We take our time with washing the hands. We take our time with dipping the vegetable. We take our time with the Manish Tana. Everyone says the Manish Tana. When I was growing up, we all said it in a different language. Even in my house now, I rap the Manish Tana, like that. Just like that. We rap the Manish Tana. Really let everyone get into it and ask the questions and feel like something's happening in this night. And then we go into Avadim Hayinu. We were slaves. The answer, what really happened? We were slaves. Don't feel shy to stand up and tell the story. Get the words of the story out of your mouth. From there all the way until the time that you eat the matzah, this is your improv night. You look at your guests, don't look at your guests. Think about your guests before you ever get to the Seder, and think about where they're at and how you can best get this message to them. All the messages. The message of God's oneness, the message of God's love, the message of divine providence, the message of divine retribution with the 10 plagues, the message of coming out of our personal Egypt. Think about who your guests are and how you can best get that message to them. You may play a game. You may, like my sister does, put little froggy all over the table to remind the children of the plagues. If it's, multi-generational, what we did once was we made a play. My daughter wrote a play, and, the grandparents, they didn't prepare anything. We just handed them a script and put a funny hat on their head, and, there was baby Moses in the water, and that was the play that we did. Anything. One year in the middle of the Seder, I just stood up and read a storybook about a miracle that happened in Seder. You can improvise. Don't feel like it is important to say the words of the Haggadah because there's so much holiness in them. And if we had 6 days and nights and, you can delve into them. And actually, you can delve into them before you ever get to the Seder so that you can carry the meaning with you. But if you're the guy running the Seder, your job is to get the message over to the people and don't get caught up in the details. It's okay to read some of the passages in English. Read what you need to in English. Just own it, prepare for it, make it memorable. The goal of the Seder night is that there should be this iridescent memory etched onto the minds of your children. And this memory should serve as the core of their identity and carry them through the rest of the year and be able to be so strong that it will be passed on to their children and to their children and to their children. We used to have pillows at the Seder. I don't know if you do this, but you sit like kings. So everyone, this is how it would go. My father would come into the house and all the children would run upstairs and throw pillows down. It's actually pretty orderly on a Seder night, except for the pillow throwing pillows down the steps, and then we'd each choose our pillow and have that at the table. And it's just something a little special, you lean on your pillow. My husband's even more orderly than that, so we don't do pillows. But I do remember at his mother's house, I think we had pillows, but we kind of put the pillowcase over the back of the chair, so you had a little cushion, a little extra something. Here's another Seder tip. Do things that make your Seder easier. One thing that's nice to do is, if you're not sure if you're a grape juice or wine person, some of the people like a mix of grape juice and wine, and we would have pictures of that in the middle of the table because, sometimes if you have a glass of wine at the beginning of your meal, you're just sunk, you're just so sleepy, you can't enjoy it. But you don't want grape juice, so mix it, but have it prepared. Another neat thing to have prepared that we do is, we know that everyone dips their vegetable in salt water, so we prepare the salt water in advance and we put it into little tiny shot glasses by everyone's table, by everyone's seat, because that way, if you have so many guests, it's hard to pass around that salt. It's like a little bit more cumbersome. And all these little tricks save time, and they also save on chaos, which can easily happen. I want to wrap it up just because I don't like long videos. There really is so much more to say. I'll tell you one more thing real quick, is if you have a lot of guests, prepare your maror in advance. One of the ways you can eat maror is by eating romaine lettuce, and there's a certain amount, about this much. Prepare it in advance. Wash it, clean it, check it, and then just measure out the right amount, put it in little baggies. So that when the time comes to eat maror and korach, you just hand out the bags, and it's very neat and clean, and your Seder can run like a Seder and like royalty. I want to tell you a quick story, and this is the story of Shabsi, the woodcutter. That there was a rabbi, I think it was Reb Leib Sassover, a long time ago, a couple hundred years ago, and he said to his students, there's one person in his Seder, I feel that his Seder is just such a high and holy Seder. So his students ran to this man who was Shabsi, this simple woodcutter. They looked inside of his house and watched his Seder. Behold, it was a pretty regular Seder. They didn't see like Elijah the prophet floating around. They didn't see any, special mystical things happening. Actually, the Seder was pretty quick, and it just kept, moving, and then it was over. And they were kind of surprised. So the next day they said to him, Shabsi, our Rebbe told us that you're a very, very holy man, and that your Seder is the most holy, and can you please tell us, what you did? And Shabsi said, my Seder. Well, he said, I'll tell you about my Seder. It was really nothing special. You see, before Pesach, I was preparing so much. I was working so hard day and night to gather up enough pennies so we can have a beautiful Seder. And I was working, and then I had to go and get matzahs and bake matzahs, and I was so busy that I'm embarrassed to say I didn't even notice how hard my wife was working. And there my wife was at home cooking and cleaning and taking care of everything. She was working so hard for the Seder, and I have to say I didn't really understand, where she was at. Well, the night of the Seder came, and my wife was getting the wine ready at the table right before I came home. And as she poured the wine, it spilled onto the white tablecloth that she washed by hand, lovingly with care, looking forward to the Seder, the end of all her hard work, and it spilled on the Seder tablecloth. And she was so upset that she took the tablecloth and she tore it off, and everything fell to pieces. The matzahs that I worked so hard to bake and to gather the money for, and the wine. that was so expensive and all the money that we spent in it, and it was just ruined. And I looked at my wife and I understood. She has so much frustration. Wow, this woman must be so wound up. She must have been working so hard. I felt terrible that I didn't even notice how hard she worked. So I cleaned up the mess and I set up my Seder. And we began our Seder. By that time it was really quite late, so we just hurried through it. They nodded their heads and now they understood why the Shapsi Seder was the Holy Seder. Because sometimes we judge holiness by, fancy types of, we want to see something different, something interesting, some magical glow, right? But there's holiness in acting beautifully, righteously towards one another. And that is the main message that I want to give you on Seder night. Think about Shapsi Seder. It didn't go the way he planned. And look how he controlled himself. Look how he saw out of himself and into his wife's needs. Look how he composed himself and put it together and got through the night, not with anger, bitterness, or resentment. Everyone is working so hard for Passover. The husbands, the wives, the children, the whole family. And sometimes we do ourselves a big disservice because we come to this Seder with a great expectation. Let go of the expectation and experience true holiness. And true holiness is being kind to one another, being aware of the other people at the table, basking in the glow of Hashem's love. When you feel that you are loved, you have nothing to offer but love. And that's what we need to do for the people around us. My father used to always leave a little piece of jewelry on my mother's plate on Seder night. After all her hard work, one little piece of jewelry just said so much. I appreciate you. You may want to try that. Or you may want to give your husband something special just to set the tone. Sometimes we buy our children something special for the Seder because, they also work so hard cooking or cleaning. Maybe a book from the bookstore, something, a beautiful piece of jewelry goes a long way. What should I tell you? A tie. Something nice to honor their work. And that's the spirit that should be at your Seder. So don't get caught up in the details. It may not be, guaranteed it won't be exactly like you planned, but it is going to be a night to remember. Bye-bye. Happy Passover.